Hello, everyone, and how are you today? We are back for another episode of the Wired for Success podcast. Today, we are talking about the quality of life. The quality of your life is linked to the quality of your relationship with your teen. So, in that sense, we have quite a few pointers that we want to give you today. And this is why this episode is going to be focused on this. Normally, what happens is that I'm going to use, I think, a bit of Steve view on that. We um, get worried about the big stuff and we forget the small stuff. It's not just about that, but it's about what it is that in which state of mind you are, and also in which state of health you are. Can we say that? I don't know. That's probably something I'm saying right now. But in which state of health you are, and which state of mind you are. Those two are really important, and we're going to dive into this in this episode. So this is my colleague Steve Costello, and I am Patience Modevi, and we are here for this episode.
Hello, everybody. Um, I just want to pick up on a couple of things that you said, Patience. Well, not pick up on, but kind of move along. Um, if you think about, let's exaggerate a bit. You've got a busy parent or parents, doesn't matter, and parents are going to work, maybe doing a little bit of studying at night at school, doing the shopping, doing the cleaning, looking after the house, looking after the kids, stressing about the kids because they're doing GCSE, perhaps, or something similar. There's a lot of stuff going on in that world. So it's quite natural for many of us that what we try to do is to control the, those things as much as we possibly can. Because if we can control things, it gives us a sense of everything's better, everything's okay, I'm managing. But that's not always true, because when we're trying to do so much at once, we kind of lose connection with some of the things around us that matter a great deal. But one of those things that we're talking about, of course, is a relationship with our teens. So we don't want to lose any connection with our teens, but when we're so busy, we often do. We don't do it on purpose. It's not because we're bad parents. We're human beings being pushed too far. So life gets difficult. And one of the things with teens is that developmentally, they're driven to look for autonomy. It's a characteristic of being a teen. It's what teens do. I did it. I'm sure you did it,
Yeah.
Patient. We all do it to different levels and so on, but it happens. So if our parents are constantly trying to control what we're doing because they're trying to control everything else, they're trying to control what the team's doing, I said we, that can damage trust between the parents and the team. It
Yes.
can harm the trust in the long term. So what we want to strive for is a relationship that's based on mutual respect, because teams do need to feel heard. And what we need between teen and parents, especially in that busy world that I just described, is that we need some cooperation and we need some connection, because if we've got some cooperation, it makes it easier to manage.
Mm.
So we need to think carefully about those things.
Yeah.
Well, could you just so what we're interested in is, as I just said, is about developing cooperation and connection between parents and teen. That's really important. So perhaps a good question that parents can ask themselves, or two parents can ask each other, am I building bridges or barriers? It's a really cool question. It's that simple, but it's quite a helpful question. So, what do you think, Patience, on this?
Yeah, I really like this and the fact that so in this concept of what you are talking here, Steve, is really having an awareness of our own action as parents and what it is that you are creating in the relationship. So in that sense, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Our parents, as we were teenagers, our parents created a lot of barriers for us. Oh, this is the way we perceived it at the time. But I don't think it's changed. I think even us right now on the other side of the spectrum and being the parents, we are creating some barriers for our children. Now, we are doing it out of because safety, because we want them to do well, etc., etc. But the idea here is to really have a balance, I guess, into what is and also communicating. Like we speak a lot about communication between teens and parents, but it's communicating what are those barriers? Are you seeing this as a barrier? Well, I'm doing this because, or I'm putting this in place because of this reason. It gives an understanding for the teen to go like, oh, they they are not against me. You know, this thing of like my parents are against me. My parents are not against me. This has been created for that reason. I can understand their point of view. Now I can understand how this is impacting me. Let me also share what I think of this, barrier. I
Yeah.
mean, is that is that the idea where you were going,
Yeah,
Steve?
that's where I was headed. Yeah, that
Yeah,
definitely comes into it.
yeah.
And another thing that just popped into my head as you were talking as well is it was the word safety. Teens need to feel safe with their parents, and I don't just mean physically,
Yeah,
but emotionally they need to feel safe as well. So they do need to understand things, and if they don't understand things, that kind of creates a little bit of worry and a bit of concern, and they're not going to feel safe. So we need to work quite hard on that because when teens feel emotionally safe with their parents,
mm,
they're far less likely to seek validation that might not be safe
yes.
from other places. And those other places might be, let's say, dodgy peers or peers that we're concerned about, or social media, for example. I know of several parents that I've worked with in the past 5 years or so, who have told me that their teens have got into various problems because of social media. And I don't mean scrolling. I don't mean that as a problem, that although that is a thing in itself. But I mean deeper than that,
Yeah,
connections with people who are not desirable. And it's because they didn't feel safe and they were looking somewhere else where they felt safe, albeit momentarily because things went wrong. So we need to avoid things like that. Um,
yeah, complete.
and
Yeah.
if we're feeling emotionally safe, if you try and put yourself in that place, if you feel emotionally safe, you're more likely to be able to share things like your fears, like ask questions, and not simple questions, quite deep questions. You're more likely to be able to do that. You're more likely to be able to share doubt. So safety in relationships, emotional health, all of that stuff is really, really important.
Yeah. Like completely. Like they do say there is I don't know if it's a research or if it's just a saying, but the more, children or teenagers or young adults are able to be silly or act silly or do things, be able to fail as well, with a parent, the more safe they actually feel with the parents.
Yeah.
If they're allowed to be honest about, everything that um, the things that maybe people want to hide, if they're able to share those things, it means that they are emotionally safe
Yeah.
within a parental relationship. So
Yeah.
now, even that leads to a question. Do you feel, as a parent, that your child is emotionally safe?
Yeah.
That's a
That is
huge
a good question.
question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good question. Yeah.
That's a huge question, but at the same time, I think it is important.
Yeah. Let's not answer that question now. Let's ask people to drop a comment or
Yeah,
send us a message and let's have a conversation about it because it is a great question and it is one worth thinking about. It's not a question that you should be beating yourself up about if you think your answer is not appropriate or not right or whatever. But it is a good question to consider. There's a lot to learn from it. Um, One of the things that I think I heard you say the word role model at some
yeah,
point, um, and that is something that we need to think about as well. It comes up an awful lot, doesn't it? How we handle, for example, things like conflict as parents, how we handle stress, how we handle all the things that I was talking about earlier, all the things that are going on in our world, how we handle failure. It kind of becomes their map or their blueprint. The teams I'm talking about, obviously. So they're likely to try to actually unconsciously
yeah,
copy some of the things that we're doing, and some of the things that we're doing might not be right, and we might not be aware that we're doing them as well. So we need to create this kind of environment where it's okay for the team to say, "Hey, why do you say that?" or "Why do you think that?" We need to be asked questions too. It's not just
yeah,
us asking questions about ourselves or about our kids. We need them to ask us questions and we need to create the environment where they feel able and safe enough to do that. Really
yeah.
important.
And I think if you are listening to this episode, go back and listen to the last episode because we spoke about a few things there which will be linked to what we're talking about now, what Steve just mentioned right now. When you think of the things that, so when we talk about role modeling, it's also how we emphasizing on things. So if you are a warrior as a parent and you feel that this is your nature and you've nurtured this worry in your life, surely it's impacting your teen
Yeah,
and your teen is therefore, yeah. So just go and listen to the last episode.
yeah, that's definitely worthwhile. And what about sharing our moments as well? Sharing as parents, I mean, sharing our moments with our teens. Moments like not the big events, not the, work as a disaster, I'm so stressed, etc., etc. Okay, we do need to share that stuff so they understand what is affecting us too. But what about the small stuff? Quite
Mm,
often, especially in a busy life, the small stuff gets kind of skipped across.
yeah,
So one of the things I do with my clients is I get them each session, I say to them, share one win that you had between the last session and this session. Just one win. Doesn't matter how big or how small. And quite often in the beginning, people are looking for the big stuff. And they say, well, I haven't really got anything. So I have to push and narrow it down and so on until they get something that is a win, but it seems on the surface quite insignificant. But doing that with our teams is a great way to develop a better relationship, a stronger relationship. We
yeah,
can do it in the car, we can do it on the bus, we can do it when we're sitting down at dinner time or watching TV or whatever. There's a ton of ways that you can do that.
yeah.
Um,
I agree. It's a bit like when you're building a wall and you're putting big rocks and you're putting sands in between and you're putting things so everything becomes compact and solid. Is
yeah,
exactly what you were saying now. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we've got a lot of other things we can share in relation to this. And maybe what we're going to need to do is break it down so that we do some more next episode, because otherwise it's going to be quite an overwhelming episode with too much information almost. So where do you think, let's pull this together, patients. Where shall we, how shall we do that? What do you think?
I, I think there's a few things that were mentioned. So in this episode, what did we mention? We mentioned that you should think of the small things, not only the big things. So thinking of those things that reinforce your relationship between yourself and your teen. We talked also about whether we're creating barriers or we creating, what did you say, Steve? Barriers or
I don't know what to say.
okay, whether we create helpful behaviors or whether
Yeah.
we creating
Yeah. Are we building
barriers,
bridges or are we building barriers?
bridges or barriers.
Yeah.
We spoke about that, and we also spoke about the fact that it is a process. So it's not something that happens in a way. It's about communicating. So, yes, asking questions, yes, prompting, but also being willing to also get the questions and to answer them and to be transparent with your teens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's,
those are three things that I remember. You remember more? Write it in the comments. Uh, and obviously, we'll be back next week with more on this subject.
yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't
Thank
forget
you.
comments and questions. All questions get an answer. If you don't ask a question, it's a bad question because you didn't ask it. Okay. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Bye.